1 year has passed since Roh Moo-hyun was inaugurated as president of South Korea, but his political environment has drastically changed over the past year. Professor Kimura, what do you think of the present situation of President Roh Moo-hyun?
Yeah, President Roh Moo-hyun now faces 4 problems. The first problem is South Korean people's very small support to his government. Last February, his government started with very strong support of the people. According to a major Korean newspaper, more than 90% of the people supported the new regime at the time. But just in 5 months, the support of the people to the Roh Moo-hyun government has dramatically decreased to less than 30%. After the democratization in 1987, Roh Moo-hyun is the most unpopular president in South Korean political history as a president who has still 4 years to go. The second problem for him is that the government party, Yielding Freedom or Uri Party, is very weak as a parliament. Even when Roh Moo-hyun government started, the original government party, Minjudan or the Democratic Party, just have 40% of seats at the parliament. It is a conservative opposition party, Hannaradan, was the Grand National Party, which has been the majority. Roh Moo-hyun was not satisfied with this situation, not because the Democratic Party didn't have the majority at the parliament, but because the party was still under strong influence of the former President Kim Dae-jung, and many members of the party don't have a positive attitude towards his government and his political and social reformation. So, Roh Moo-hyun split this original government party, the Democratic Party, and made new and pure Roh Moo-hyun, but very small government party. The party, Uri Party, now has just 47 seats of all 273 seats. Thirdly, growth of the economy has slowed down since he's taking his office as president. It is hard to see this economic slump as a result of Roh Moo-hyun regime because his government has just started when the slump of the economy started. The slump rather should be regarded as a result of the regime of the former President Kim Dae-jung. But this kind of economic situation gave South Korean people an impression that Roh Moo-hyun and his government didn't have enough ability to lead the Korean economy to further development. Lastly, of course, today's political scandals around Roh Moo-hyun and his government give serious negative influence to his regime.
As you mentioned before, President Roh Moo-hyun's approval rating has been hovering around a low level recently. One of the major reasons for the sudden drop of the public trust in him is the illegal fundraising and bribery related to the presidential election on December 2002. Professor Kimura, is it likely that the investigation of this scandal will continue in a wider range in the future? And what will Roh Moo-hyun's situation be like?
Yeah, I think there are a few points to understand the presidential election fund scandal and its deep influence to Korean politics. First, it is not a scandal just over the presidential side. In South Korea, the fund to be used for presidential election must be severely restricted and controlled. But both sides, the Roh Moo-hyun side and the side of Lee Hye-chan, who was a candidate of the opposition in the presidential election in 2002, broke the rule and used a very big amount of what they call secret fund at the election. In Korea, presidents have been structurally given a strong power since its independence in 1948, and the situation has not changed so much even after democratization in 1987. At least, many Korean people still believe that presidents have something like almighty power in their society. So they believe they anyway must win the election at any cost. In this kind of situation, it is rational for major company or conglomerates, chaebols, to use their resources or money to keep their position in society, especially if requested by the candidates, because it is a nightmare to be an enemy of the new president. In the presidential election in 2002, Roh Moo-hyun was never a candidate of major conglomerates. But they have their reason to pay money not only to Lee Fei-cheung, but also to Roh Moo-hyun. The dilemma for Roh Moo-hyun is that he is supported by the people who strongly hope the reformation of such South Korean political system and society. But he himself has used illegal funds to win the elections for the reformation. It means that he himself shows that he is also a product of the old and bad system of the society. In this meaning, his situation may be a little bit similar to the situation of Mikhail Gorbachev in the end of the 1980s in the Soviet Union. To win the seat for the reformation of the new system, he had to use the resources and the help of the older system he hates. But if he used them, it was hard for him to survive in the big wave toward reformation. But anyway, Roh Moo-hyun must survive and find his way for survival. The only way for Roh Moo-hyun may be anyway to loudly speak for the reformation and continue it. Once he stopped it, or people understood he is trying to slow down it, to escape from his scandal, he will be thrown off the bus, called reformation.
In January and February, President Roh Moo-hyun replaced foreign minister and presidential advisors who had supported his government. Reportedly, the major reasons for their resignation were the disputes within the cabinet over President's foreign and security policies. Professor Kimura, what would you like to say about the recent troubles of the Roh Moo-hyun government?
Well, I don't think that the Roh Moo-hyun government is changing the direction of its diplomacy. Certainly, reshuffling of the foreign minister and the presidential advisor for foreign affairs may look that they are changing the direction, especially from the pro-American side to more national side. It is also true that Roh Moo-hyun has been supported by the people who have strong anti-American sentiment, which was shown at a big anti-American demonstration in 2002. He was pressured by such people. But it doesn't mean that Roh Moo-hyun government is going to the side of nationalism. Although Roh Moo-hyun himself also seemed to have similar nationalist feeling, especially on the United States. But he must also consider the reality around the Korean Peninsula as president. The point here is that however strong nationalism they have, they still have not had a clear picture on their future position in the world if they change their direction. In today's globalizing world, it is nonsense to go to the way of the isolation in the international society. And Korean people understand it very well because this is the most important lesson they learned in the Asian financial crisis. Once deserted by the international society and superpowers, they couldn't survive in the world and lost every fruit of their economic development at the moment. This is their keen understanding of today's international society. So, even after the reshuffling of the member of the government, the Korean government doesn't seem to have changed direction. New minister and new advisors are repeatedly insisting the importance of the alliance and cooperation with the United States. And the government already decided to send more troops, actually, to Iraq. And then it will become the biggest military force in Iraq after the United States and the United Kingdom. However, under this situation, the Korean people must be frustrated. This can be another reason for the Koreans to be disappointed by Roh Moo-hyun government.
One of the key points of South Korea's security is its relations with North Korea. In the presidential campaign in 2002, Roh Moo-hyun strongly called for the need for settling North Korea issues through dialogues, which won him victory in the presidential race. Now he works for easing the tensions on the Korean Peninsula while acting in concert with other countries, including the United States and Japan, through such means as the Six-Nation talks. How do the Korean people estimate the Roh Moo-hyun government in terms of its policy towards North Korea?
Yeah. In South Korean society today, the North Korean issue is not regarded as so important after dramatic development of the economies in 1980s, South Korean people gradually became to understand that North Korea is not already a very serious threat to their society. In this point, I think they are basically right, different from North Korea, which is struggling with the international situation after the Cold War and their collapsed economy as a result of it. Today, South Korea has enough military and economical power to defend themselves from the threat of the North, even without the alliance of the United States. For young South Korean people, North Korea is just poor, miserable, and contemptible, and another society from the society. For today's South Korean people, the more important thing is to keep their rich and peaceful society. We need to remember that the most of the today's Korean people, especially younger generation, doesn't have any personal relationship with North Korean people, so it is very hard for them to feel at the bottom of their heart that such miserable North Korean people are their brothers. In this meaning, Roh Moo-hyun's policy to North Korea is fit to the feeling of the South Korean people, because they don't regard North Korea as a serious threat. They will not take a hard line toward North Korea. Rather, they have other two nightmares. One is that the United States start a war against North Korea. So they will make their best effort to realize the conciliation of the United States and North Korea. The other nightmare is that someday, suddenly, North Korea is collapsed, and North and South Korea are forced to be one. In this nightmare, their economy will be severely damaged. Here, there are the reasons that South Korean people supported their government policy toward North Korea. And it is hard to imagine that the South Korean government changed their direction of the policy to North Korea from today's soft line to hard line.
Finally, Professor Kimura, do you think that President Roh Moo-hyun will be able to overcome the president's critical situation? Is there any means for him to pull back from the brink of disaster? Please make your comments on these points.
Yeah, my answer is simple. Any party may win the election, but it is hard, very hard for Roh Moo-hyun to recover his leadership. The authority of Roh Moo-hyun is already hurt. In this situation, if any party gets a landslide victory at the election, the fruits of the victory will be attributed not to the unpopular President Roh Moo-hyun, but to the younger leader of the government party, Chon Dong-yeon. In the worst case for Roh Moo-hyun, he himself is thrown off the bus, called reformation, and the presidential election of 2007 for Chon Dong-yeon will start. In contrast with this, if the opposition, the Grand National Party, successfully keep its position as a leading party at the parliament, a chaotic situation will be there, because the Grand National Party itself is in a chaotic situation now, and it is hard for them to find their new leader. It means that Korean politics again lose their leader. But the most important point to understand today's Korean politics is that South Korean people today are already living in the age where it is hard to find a strong leader like Kim Dae-jung, Kim Yong-sang, or more typically Park Chung-hee. South Korean society today is already very rich and peaceful and well democratized. They have already made their dreams they dreamed in the 1960s come true. But they still believe they need more reformation, and they believe they can go further toward their promised land with the guidance of the strong political leader. But today, these rich and democratized people don't have their roadmap to the promised land. This may be the most serious problem for today's Korean society. They are now standing at the final turning point of the society from a poor but ambitious developing country to a rich but broad developed country.
Professor Kimura, thank you very much.
Thank you.